Okay, hello everyone. My name is Ab Vand. I am the VP for Capture and Proposal Development at GDI Consulting, and today we have a webinar on the Optionally Manned Fighting Vehicle OMFV program, which is essentially replacing the replacement for the Bradley. Before we start, and my colleague Steve Mims takes over, I wanted to give you some administrative notes. First of all, this webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be sent to you within 24 hours. So if you have to drop out at any time or you have problems in terms of communication, you will receive a link to the recording later on. Also, we are going to hold a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, and you can, throughout the webinar, as Steve is explaining the details, there is a chat section to the right bottom that you can send any questions you have, and at the end of the webinar, when we get to the Q&A, we will respond to all of that. Also, the webinar slides is also available, again, to the right. You can download it in case you want to do that. So now I will pass it over to Steve. Steve Mims is one of our senior proposal managers, and he's been at General Dynamics for many years as senior proposal manager, and he's going to explain the various details of the OMFV program. Steve, go ahead, please. Steve, we are not hearing you.
Sorry about that.
Okay, go ahead.
This is Steve Mims, remembering how to push buttons here. Okay, so what killed the upgrade? Well, obviously concerns over the survivability of the vehicle has created some concern in the Army as they changed their focus from large systems to smaller, more easily transportable vehicles, okay? The Bradley has become slower, lacks the electrical generation to incorporate all the additional upgrades that have been put in place in the last 20 years or so. The Bradley is too slow and not compatible with the upgrade path because it's cluttered with screens and controls from 40 years of upgrades, putting a heavy burden on the electrical system. And they also want to be able to increase the size of the vehicle to allow a larger number of soldiers to participate in the movements. Next slide, please. Ab, you going to do the next slide? Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I thought you were going to do it because we were having some technical difficulties on my end. Big things that they want to include in the new version of the Bradley is independent optical sensors, tracking radar, launchers, all part of the active protection system. The active protection system is something that they're trying to deploy on all the mobile vehicles, okay, to enhance force protection and survivability, especially when combined with a passive armor system. The objectives, I'm just going to kind of read these, okay, because they want it to be optionally manned primarily so that they can get it from point A to the front line while the crew is off the platform. They're talking about the possibility of remotely controlling the vehicle in its progress towards the front line. They want it to operate with no more than 2 crewmen and possess sufficient volume under armor to carry at least 6 soldiers. There's kind of a catch on this. They want the 2 OMVs, okay, to be transportable by one C-17 and ready for combat within 15 minutes. I think some of the issues that they're encountering is whether the turrets could be removed and whether there's going to be a requirement that the turrets be put back in place within 15 minutes. This is focused on the change in strategy from, open area warfare to participating in a dense urban terrain, operations and mobility, so that they can use the system's ability to super elevate weapons and simultaneously engage threats using the main gun. The focus on that is so that it's not sitting out in the open all the time and just attracting attention. It's got to possess required protection to survive on the contemporary as well as the open battlefield. As this is part of a program to increase the mobility of the Army, it's got to possess sufficient size, weight, architecture, and power for growth, and electrical purposes to meet all the platform needs in the future. Lithology, it's pretty expected that the immediate, precise, and decisively legal extended range from medium caliber directed energy and missile fires in day and night. It's got to include embedded platform training. The systems have got to have interoperability with the synthetic training environment so that you can run it through simulators and the like. Industry should demonstrate innovations that achieve breakthroughs in power generations. This is very important. And management to achieve additional operational range and fuel efficiency, increase in silent watch, part and component reliability, and significantly reduce sustainment burden. The acquisition lead of this is the Next Generation Combat Vehicle Cross-Functional Team, part of the Army's modification strategy. And another reason why we think that the procurement has been delayed is that this is a note that was put out in a congressional research study that said that we don't have a program director yet, or they didn't back in April, so you can expect that there was some disconnects possible that they're trying to avoid. I can't tell you much about the upgrade because the government has not released anything other than a very abbreviated Section L for the requirements for the RFP and Section M for the evaluation criteria. The Bradley right now is getting $635 million in 2020, which is up 30%. But in 2023, the Army is going to be finished buying 5 brigades of the new Bradley model. It'll start buying the next generation. So that'll give you time to put the new generation in place and let it go through the acquisition process. So this is all part of the transition to the future with the canceled future combat system because it failed to adapt as they felt as the world changed out from under it. So all of this neat stuff that they did in FCS is going to be incorporated into, but not limit, the new acquisition. Here are the big 6 priorities that the Army has right now. So you can see where the armor, the NGCV, fills in. They expect $12 billion or $13 billion over the next few years. That means the Army can dial up its commitment over time as a new technology proves its worth. And we'll get into the acquisition strategy as we know it in just a few minutes. There are 3 companies right now, BAE, General Dynamics, and Rheinmetall and Raytheon combined, who have got prototypes out that right now could be fielded. They're looking for new guns and electronics to go on board these vehicles. Here's a picture of the BAE prototype CB90, and some of the specifications that they've got on it. It features the Israeli IMI system, which is Iron Fist Active Protection, you've probably already heard about, which is currently being tested on the M2. It can accommodate a 3-person crew and 5 infantry soldiers, so you can see it's a little bit less than the requirements. GD Land Systems is proposing the Griffin 3 technology, which uses the British Ajax Scout vehicle chassis. Looks pretty cool, but it doesn't necessarily meet all the requirements because they're talking about a 2-person crew and 6 infantry soldiers. Here's the one which we feel is probably the leader of the pack because Raytheon states that the Lynx can accommodate an entire 9-soldier infantry field, and it's got the 50-millimeter cannon thermal sights and can accommodate both APS and UAVs. So this is all being put together as part of a network of manned vehicles. Here's a little bit of detail on the weight and upgrade concerns. Okay, I mentioned this. Can the C-17 carry 2 of these in the strip configuration? And does the strip configuration include the turret? Expect to have more news on that shortly. So how do we get there? This is a modification to the rapid prototyping system that was used by the Army in the Future Combat Systems. They want you to be able to deliver 14 pre-production vehicles as well as 2 ballistic hulls and turrets. They're going to use the Rapid Prototyping Authority under Section 804, which allows the program to enter at the engineering and manufacturing development stage and avoid that long-term test and deploy process that was part of FCS. Here's a summary of Section 804. It explains the path, okay, and avoiding the need to participate in and be part of the JSIDs and DoD Directive 5001. But to field a prototype they wanted to be demonstrated in an operational environment and provide for a residual operational capability within 5 years of the development. And if you don't know anything about 804, it's probably going to be worth looking up because it's a merit-based process for the consideration of innovative technologies, process for developing and implementing acquisition and funding strategies from the program, and a process for transitioning successful prototypes to new or existing acquisition programs for production and fielding. The idea is to produce a system or part of a system that can identify and exploit opportunities to use the rapid fielding pathway to reduce total ownership costs. Here is what our typical procurement strategy with the government looks like, okay, with the MDD, the CDD, technical risk maturation process, engineering, manufacturing, and development production line costs. By being able to deploy a system that has already gone through this process through the 804. So the Secretary of the Army in April noted that industry could deliver OMFV prototypes by 2021, reportedly stated he wanted to accelerate the timeline. After examining a number of possible courses of action, the Army reportedly settled on a timeline that would result in a 2020-26 fielding of the OMFV 40. They want to award up to 2 vendors 3-year engineering and manufacturing development contracts for the first quarter of 2020. If the EMD is successful, they'll make a milestone C decision to move the program into production and the development phase in the 3rd quarter of FY 2023 and equip the first units in the 1st quarter of 2026. If I'm going too fast, too quickly, please raise your hands. Okay, let us know. The Modernization Task Force examines the options for establishing the Army Futures Command that would establish unity of command and effort as the Army consolidated its modernization process under one roof. By using cross-functional teams, they expect to increase the efficiency of the requirements and technology development efforts by leveraging expertise from industry and academia, identifying ways to use experimentation, prototyping, and demonstrations, and identify opportunities to improve the efficiency of requirements development and overall defense systems acquisition. Impediments to the procurement. GAO's findings that I mentioned back in April have not yet said that the Army had not yet established policies and procedures and suggest a current degree of uncertainty how the NGCV program will be managed. There's really a dearth of information out on the internet or anywhere else that we can assess that talks about how they're going to get from point A to deployment. We expect that that's going to come out soon, and Ab has some comments on that towards the end. Again, as I said, they intend to award 2 middle tier acquisition rapid prototyping contracts. That's under Section 804. It'll be a base award that may include multiple options procuring 14 pre-production vehicles per contractor, 2 ballistic hulls and turrets per contractor, armor coupons, and logistics products. The proposals will be due approximately 180 days after the RFP is released. Offerors may be required to submit a bid sample. It's not clear what they mean by a bid sample at this point, and armor coupons to substantiate proposal data. An award of the contract in 2020. So here's where we get to our contact information. If you have any questions, we apologize that we're not able to present any more specific procurement information, but earlier statements that the Army has issued said this is access to the documents is going to be ITAR limited. So if we've got an ITAR issue, that may create a problem. Ab pointed out that FBO has a notice that came out on the 26th, and we don't have that incorporated into this, but basically it says that they're going to have a slide deck, which hopefully will provide more information, but you have to comply with the rules to request information, and it's not clear to me from this notice whether you have to have a secret facility clearance in order to get the slide deck. Ab, comments?
Well, it doesn't say secret facility clearance, so it seems that these are unclassified information. Probably they will allow other companies to get it as well.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, do we have any questions? It's pretty quiet out there.
Okay, yes, there are a few questions out, and I'll read them one by one for you. First one is, do you know if they're going to have a draft RFP or go straight to a full RFP?
No idea. My expectation, since this has been delayed so much, that'll probably go to a full RFP. There is a 180-day time period for response to the RFP. And there is indication in this recent FBO notice that there may be an industry day.
Okay. Another question is, do you know if any other companies other than the 3 you mentioned have prototypes already?
I have not been able to ascertain that. The big 3 are the ones we listed on the earlier slides. I would be surprised because that's not the kind of thing that you can keep quiet. But you could have a sleeper cell in there.
Okay. Another question is, do you have a timeline as to when this will drop?
Well, the RFP could come out according to this notice in FBO as early a draft. Did you say draft was in there, Ab? I'm sorry.
No, they're talking about the full RFP, I think.
Okay. No, we don't. But I would expect, the initial draft, if there is going to be a draft, will occur, probably in April, if they're going to have a industry day in May.
Right, and another point is that since they've said that they're going to award in the second quarter of 2020, and the companies have 6 months to provide their proposals, and they need a few months. So I think that the RFP or whatever, even if the draft, should come out very soon. It won't be towards the end of this year. It will be earlier.
Okay, as you can tell here, we're speculating a bit.
Exactly.
But we're kind of pushed into that situation.
Okay. There's a question saying, can we provide a proposal for a subsystem only, and can you provide contacts for the big three?
Yeah, we can provide contacts for the big three. Okay, we'll do that separately, and because I know some of you are in the vehicle protection business, some are in cooling systems, and some are in sensors. So I think that would be an important first step, is to get you in contact with at least the big three. If they've got the lead in prototypes, I think it'd be important for you to step up pretty quickly.
Okay. Yeah. I think we've run out of questions at this point. But at the same time, if anybody has any further questions, you can send them to the links we've provided. And if you download the slide deck, you can also have the links there. And then we can answer any questions you might have, and even connect you to the big three, as you mentioned.
As far as the future is concerned, any information that we get that changes this presentation or clarifies any of the questions that you've already asked, we will send them out to you.
Exactly, because we have your emails, and we'll be sending any further information to you. So by this, I would like to thank everyone for participating, and we are going to close this webinar. Thank you, everyone.